students, welcome to Life Processes Part 2. Now we will continue our discussion regarding nutrition as heterotrophic nutrition. Now let's start our discussion with heterotrophic nutrition. Now as you know that different organisms, they obtain their food by the process of heterotrophic nutrition. Now these different organisms are adapted to their environment. Naturally, they are belonging from the different environment, so there is a great effect of environment on this food. Similarly, these organisms, they differ in the type of nutrition. Now this form of nutrition of these heterotrophs depends on three major factors. First one is the type of food they utilize. The second important factor is the availability of the food. And the third important factor is how that food is assessed or utilized or obtained by that organism. Now even the food source, whether it is a stable food source or the stationary food source or it is mobile food source, that will also decide the type or the form of nutrition. For example, is the stationary food source is there like the grass. So the form of nutrition in cow will be different than that of the lion or tigers, where the food source is a deer or it is a mobile food source. So in this manner, the different forms of nutrition in case of heterotrophs depend on different types of food. Thus, the different heterotrophs show a wide range of varieties of by which the food is taken up and it is utilized. Now in some cases, the food is initially broken outside and then it is utilized by the organism. The best example is the fungi like the bread mold, then molds or the yeast and mushrooms. So in these organisms, initially they break up the food outside and then they utilize. In certain cases, the organism first internalize the food and then they use it or then they digest it. Now in certain cases, the organism they show parasitic nutrition. In that case, they use either the plants or the animals as their food without killing. Now such kinds of parasitic nutrition is obtained or observed in certain examples such as the Cuscuta, lice, leeches as well as tapeworm. So in short, we can see that there is a wide range of the varieties or the wide range of the mode or approaches or strategies of nutrition by which they can carry out the internalization or taking up of food and further utilization. Different heterotrophs, they differ in their type of food and the way by which it utilizes. As a result of this, they also differ in their digestive system. Now initially we will take the example of unicellular organism. There are two different unicellular organisms such as amoeba and paramecium. In case of paramecium, the whole body is covered by or the whole cell is covered by the cilia. Now here, this organism, even though it is simple unicellular organism, it is having a specific spot or specific site at which it gets the food, and the food is brought near that specific site by the movement of cilia.
Another example of unicellular organism is the amoeba. In case of amoeba, food is taken by using pseudopodia that fuse over the food particle and form a food vacuole. Inside the food vacuole, complex substances are broken down into the simple one and then diffused in the cytoplasm. Remaining undigested food material moves towards the cell surface and thrown out.
Now after the unicellular organisms, now coming to the nutrition in human beings. Now this is one of the important point from your syllabus point of view, and you have to go through the details of this point. Now in case of human beings, the alimentary canal, it extends, or it is a long tube that extends from mouth to anus. Now it involves different functions, or the different parts that are having the different functions in the nutrition. Now starting from mouth. Now as we know that the food is taken up by or taken up from mouth. Now within this mouth, teeth are present. Now these teeth are responsible for crushing of the food, so that the food is converted into the particles of same size and texture. Now the inner walls or linings of the alimentary canal are smooth, so that it will continuously make the food moist, so that it will be easily swallowed up. Then comes the salivary glands. The next important component involved in the nutrition is the salivary glands. Now these salivary glands, they secrete saliva, and this saliva is having the presence of salivary amylase. Now whenever the food comes in the mouth, it is not only moistened or it is not mixed with the water, but that fluid also consists of salivary amylase. This salivary amylase is having a key role because the complex sugars or carbohydrates such as starch are converted to simple sugars or like the glucose by this amylase enzyme. Now this presence of salivary amylase in the saliva can be detected by very simple laboratory activity. Now in this activity, take two test tubes A and B. In both the test tube, take 1 ml starch solution. In the test tube A, along with the starch solution, add a quantity of saliva. Then keep both the tubes for a while or for few minutes. After this, add iodine solution in both the tubes and observe the color. Now you will observe that in case of tube B, the color that is purple color or dark violet color is obtained. Now because this color is observed because when we add iodine solution, it will react with the starch. But in case of tube A, no coloration or light color will be observed. Even though in both the tubes starch solution is there, but in A tube we have added saliva, which consists of salivary amylase that hydrolyzes this starch, and so there will be no end product, that is purple color. So this activity can be sufficiently used to detect the presence of salivary amylase in the saliva. Now further, from this, when the food is mixed with the water or the watery fluid and saliva, then this food enters the gut area. Now this gut area or the lining of gut area, it is provided or having the muscles. These muscles, contract rhythmically, and the food from the mouth is further moved or pushed by, through this gut by the peristaltic movement. From mouth, food is brought to stomach via esophagus. Now this stomach is a large organ and it is having important role in the nutrition. Now when the food enters in the stomach, this stomach expands. Similarly, the inner lining of the stomach is muscular. Now because of this muscular inner lining, it helps the mixing of the food with the digestive juices. So the gastric glands that are present in the walls of stomach, they release three different components that are hydrochloric acid, that is HCl, then the enzyme pepsin, and the third one is the mucus. Now each of these having important role. Now this HCl, it creates the acidic medium that is required for the action of pepsin. Now the pepsin is protein digesting enzyme. So it is responsible for digestion of protein components in the food. And the mucus, it protects the walls of the stomach from the attack of acid, so that it will be protected. From stomach, the food enters into the intestine, that is small intestine. Now this exit of the food from stomach is controlled or regulated by a sphincter muscle. Now this small intestine is the longest part of alimentary canal, and it is extensively coiled structure so that it will be fit in the compact space. The small intestine, it is a site of complete digestion of proteins, carbohydrates and fats. So the major component of the food, that is proteins, carbohydrates and fats, these are the complex components that are digested into the simpler one in the small intestine. Now this complete digestion is achieved by the secretions from liver and pancreas. Now the secretions from liver that are brought into the small intestine. Now this secretion, it consists of two major components or two major parts. First one, that is the bile juices, and second one is the bile salt. Each of these is having important function in the digestion of food. Now when the food enters in the small intestine, it is acidic in nature. Now this acidic food is made alkaline by using these bile juices, so that it will be readily acted upon by the pancreatic enzymes. The another role of bile juices is that it acts on fats. So there are two significant functions of bile juices. The bile juices acts on the fats, as well as it makes the acidic food alkaline, so that it will be readily acted upon by the pancreatic juices. The another component is the bile salt. Now when the fats, they enter in the liver, they enter in the small intestine, these are in the form of very large globules. Now these large globules are not acted upon readily by the enzymes or the pancreatic enzymes. So the bile salt, it breaks these large fat globules into the smaller globules, and so that the efficiency of action of enzymes is increased. Pancreas secrete pancreatic juices. Now these pancreatic juices, it consists of two major enzymes that are trypsin lipase. Now this trypsin digests the proteins and lipase, it emulsifies the fats. Now the inner lining or walls of small intestine, it consists of intestinal glands. Now these intestinal glands, it also secrete the intestinal juices, and it also consists of enzymes. Now as a net result of all these enzymes and secretions, finally the proteins are digested to the simple component, that is amino acids. Then complex carbohydrates are digested to the simple sugars like glucose, and then fats are digested, or these are emulsified to the simple products, that is fatty acids and glycerol. So overall, the small intestine is the site of complete digestion of proteins, carbohydrates and fats. Now these digested foods are absorbed by the inner walls of the small intestine. Now these inner walls of the small intestine are having numerous projections. Now these projections are called as villi. These are the finger-like projections. Now these villi are having two major roles. First one, that it increases the surface area of absorption. So the walls of small intestine absorb these digested foods. Now in that process of digestion, the walls help because the villi, they increase the area of absorption of food, and these villi are richly supplied with the blood vessels. Now because of these blood vessels, the digested food is supplied to each and every cell of the body. These blood vessels, they take the absorbed food to each and every cell of the body. Now they obtain the energy from this absorbed food, and they utilize this energy for the preparation or production of new tissues as well as the repair of damaged or old tissues. Now after that, the villi, they absorb the water. From the small intestine, the rest of the unabsorbed food is brought to large intestine. And then the remaining food or the remaining waste material is excreted from large intestine via anus. The exit of waste material from anus is regulated by anal sphincter.
In complex organisms like human beings, nutrition is also a complex process and involves different organs. These can be seen clearly in this diagram. The food is taken through the mouth and then it passes to stomach via esophagus and subsequently to small and large intestine. Finally, unabsorbed food is released outside as waste material through anus.
So now coming to the end of this session, we have gone through the details of heterotrophic nutrition in case of both, that is the unicellular organisms as well as human beings. Hope you have better understood the concept. In our next video, we will start with the next life process, that is respiration. Like, share and subscribe my channel. Don't forget to press the bell button so that you will get the notification of our coming videos. So thank you.